how do you stop being the chameleon? So you're the person that in one setting you adapt and put on this mask to, be what you think people need. And then in another setting, you put on a new mask and, you adapt to be what those people need or what you think that they need. And, for somebody that is living that way, they can feel like they're living 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different lives because they don't ever feel the freedom to be themselves. Well, the first thing that you need to realize is that you have to understand who you are. And somebody who's wearing a mask in different settings or feels like they're being the chameleon and they're just blending in, they can say, well, it's my gifting, and there may be some truth to that. But the reality is it's draining. And if you don't understand who you truly are, you're going to find yourself exhausted and striving, likely burned out, and maybe trying to find confidence in things that are external to you because you don't have security in the person that you are. Otherwise, you'd be that same person in every given setting. For me personally, what that looked like was just taking off the masks one by one. And the way that the Lord really helped me do that was starting with the idea of reputation. So reputation is extremely valuable. It's more valuable than money and other things. But the truth is, you will be misunderstood in life. And until you can accept that, it's going to be very difficult to take off the masks that you're wearing. Jesus was the most misunderstood person that ever walked this planet. And people want to define themselves by being confident in being understood and validated. But you have to accept that you won't be understood even if you're perfect, even if you communicate everything clearly, even if you are being your fullest, truest version of yourself, people might not accept you. And that's why I believe the Bible says, kick the dirt off your shoes and move to the next town. When you have your awakening, you start to realize, wow, I cannot continue living the way that I've been living. I have to make a choice to choose to accept the fact that people around me might not understand the process that I'm in. For a lot of people, that process looks like healing. For a lot of people, that process looks like changing and growing. And during that time, people may not understand. Your family may not understand. Your friend group from growing up may not understand. Your coworkers may not understand. It's going to take some time for you to get comfortable in your own skin, for you to decide, this is actually who I truly am. And I believe you can't do that unless you have a relationship with the Lord and you start removing the voices that you've allowed to dictate your identity and instead choosing to listen to the voice of the Lord and what he says in Scripture about who you are in your God-given identity as a son or a daughter, and internalizing some of those things through understanding your own personal story, gifts he's given you, passions and desires that he has, that he's given you, and truthfully, paths in life that he'd like you to take that may or may not be aligned with what you've already chosen to do. How this shows up for people in their life, typically career is the first thing, especially if you're driven, high achieving, high performing. Career is the first thing that people start to look at and evaluate because they dedicate so much time, effort, and energy to it. And if you've found value and frankly too much value in your identity through performance, career, money, accomplishment, it's going to be the one that you stare down the most because you've put so much emphasis in it. So when you are surrendering your reputation, what you're doing is you're saying, I no longer need whatever this is in my life to define me. And it can feel a bit conflicting because it's like, well, I worked so hard for this thing. But the truth is, it doesn't mean that you have to throw it away. And that's what a lot of people think. I have to throw this thing away, my career away. I have to give all my money away. I've heard that before. I have to do insert the blank. And really what you have to do is you just have to surrender it to the Lord. Surrender doesn't mean you throw it away. Surrender means you go from white knuckling to living with an open hand. So the same thing that is inside your hand is now just available to the Lord for him to do some exchanging. So if he wants to take it and say, let me give you something better, then he can do it, because now you have said, this is available. I am no longer protecting it, holding onto it too tightly, trying to control this thing that is actually now controlling me. I'm instead loosening my grip and saying, Lord, if you want to take this thing, this career, money, whatever, and you want to exchange it for something better, because you're a good God who has good plans for me. And I know that even through the trials and the testing, that you will produce joy even in suffering because of the character you've given me, because that's who you are and I'm made in your image. So if you want to do that, I'm willing to live with an open hand, and I'm willing to surrender, or at least present it to you, saying, this is something that I'm no longer protecting. I am allowing you to choose what you'd like me to do. And it's really at that moment that you gain clarity on paths that the Lord has for you. A practical example is a story for me. I remember I was so conflicted while I was working on Wall Street, because I thought this is something I had invested so much time, energy, effort. It was really like the pinnacle of accomplishment for me at the time. And I'd invested, all of my every resource I had to try and get to where I was. And then I felt this pull to do something different. I felt like there was more. I wasn't fulfilled in what I was doing. The reason wasn't necessarily the work or the job or the money. It was actually, I was putting too much emphasis on those things, externalizing. And the Lord wanted me to say, God, here it is. If you want me to leave and do something different, I'm willing. And it was only at that point that he was able to do something inside of me that gave me peace. And I was no longer conflicted about what decision I had to make, because I knew whatever decision I made, he was leading. And so once that happened, he actually gave me the confidence to leave, even with uncertainty about what I was going to do next. Well, I'm really glad he gave me that confidence, because I entered into a total wilderness season where I went through a lot of loss, a lot of difficulty. And if I had known that before leaving and making that choice to leave, a very promising, more clear, certain path, I probably wouldn't have done that. So it was through this process of surrendering and, letting go of what I felt like was the thing that was going to provide whatever I wanted in life, fulfillment, security, accomplishment, success in others' eyes. It was through surrendering that and saying, Lord, I don't need to find that through this thing. That's when he opened my eyes and I started to see, wow, the only way I'm going to have that is through a dependence on you, Lord. No matter what I do or where I go, no matter, if I'm working on Wall Street or doing something different completely. And in that process, he actually led me to what I believe is one of the callings in my life, which I've been doing for the last 8 years or so, which is coaching full time and helping people navigate their journey and navigate through a lot of the things that I'm talking about when they're rebuilding their identity, discovering purpose, aligning themselves with their true priorities, and becoming the person that God has made them to be. What that looks like practically, tearing down strongholds in their life, which are thought patterns in their mind, cycles that they live in that keep them from healthy relationships and even their calling. So for me, as I went through a very difficult time after leaving Wall Street, I was still able to stay on that path rather than saying, okay, I must have made the complete wrong decision, because things externally don't look the way I thought they might be. It wasn't anything to do with that. It was actually the work God was doing inside of me that was more important. So that's how he started to remove the mask, is he helped me stop externalizing everything, focusing so much on reputation and what other people think, And he helped me instead start to see the value of what he could do inside of me, and how that would actually, through an inside out transformation, lead me down the paths that would bring more peace. And today I think about it, it's like, wow, this morning I got up and I had time with my daughters and my wife before I went on my run, and had a client conversation, and, thinking about some other calls that I have the rest of the day, and how I'll be able to spend time with my family and have the freedom of time autonomy, schedule autonomy, things that I'd always wanted, but I wasn't ready for because I didn't understand the level of focus and commitment that would be required for having that schedule freedom and the personal responsibility you have to take in your own life. And, frankly, the healing I would need to go through so that I wouldn't crack under pressure when things get hard in life, because frankly, things happen whether you're looking for it or not. And so, he's brought a level of peace and wholeness to me that has allowed me to endure difficulty on the entrepreneur journey, through my own personal growth and relationships, and through navigating hard things through loss with family and even financial pressures. And so he's done all of these things that have built my capacity and brought a true sense of security to the person that I'm, not just the person I am today, but the person I'm becoming. So I'm less focused. As a result, I'm less focused on the external things and trying to blend in and wear the masks that please everybody. And I'm more focused on who he is making me to be and what's within my control, and how I can stay on that path and align myself with people that are going to help me stay on that path, including voices that speak into my life, choices that I'm making. And it's not perfect all the time. I'm very vocal about that. If you watch anything on my YouTube or Instagram, you'll see that I'm very vocal about that. But my security is found in a much different place than it used to be. And as a result, it really helps me not feel the need to wear all those different masks that might try and keep me in a place where I'm so fearful about really living from the place of my true God-given identity. So I believe that can happen for you. It took me years to do, and I'm still on that journey, of course, of being the person who's secure in who I am and not externalizing that security, trying to find it through other things. But I've seen it happen for people, especially in the process of going through boot camp. I've seen that over 8 weeks. I've seen that happen at a very accelerated rate for people. And one of the reasons that happens at such an accelerated rate is because there's a timing piece. People are ready. They're ready for change, and they're ready to stop externalizing and finding their security in externalizing in external things. But also, God's given me a deep understanding of what you need to do to shift your focus from these external things to what's within your control right now, and a process to help people do that. So, if you're listening and you're in one of those times in your life where it's like, I'm totally working and living from a place of striving, ask me about boot camp just to see if that's something that might be worth doing for you. And you can just message me with the word boot camp and we can talk about it, and even set up a call if it's the right if it's the right fit. But this is something that I knew that I needed years ago, and it took me years to figure out how to actually implement it in my own life. And one of the ways that I learned how to do that was through leading other people who were doing the same in that process and on that journey. So stop. I would say if you're in that place where you're a chameleon, you know exactly what I mean. You're finding your identity in performance or money or accomplishment or whatever, and you have this fear of failure or loss, or, like if people found out who you were, you just couldn't be yourself anymore. You might crumble inside. It's a very particular place in life, but God is doing something. If you're listening, God is doing something to provoke change. and to bring deep security to the person that you are and the person you're becoming. And it's important because it's beyond you. It's not just about your identity, where you are, your security. It's actually even about your legacy and your family and your family's future and the generations to come. What you choose to do now makes a difference for the generations to come. And I found a lot of motivation in that, especially as I've grown my family, and God has given me 2 daughters, a wife, 2 daughters, and the reality that that is a real significant thing. What I'm choosing to do now to end, patterns I'm choosing to end now, make a difference for the health of my future family. So fight for that, even if you can't fight for yourself, especially if you're in that place where you're maybe like, single, just married or getting married, have young children. Like, this is the time right now. It's the time to do it. So stop wearing the masks and, gain that security in who you are, not what you do. Although what you do is important, although that's a part of your identity, it cannot be what you hold on to too tightly. It will not end well. So make that change now. And it's a choice you're going to have to make every day.